Maria Nez walked slowly along the long, empty road, with the sun pressing down on her shoulders. The heat made the ground shimmer, and dust rose around her with every step. She had been on this road for hours, maybe even half the day. It was hard to keep track of time when there were no signs, no buildings, and no other people around. Only the open desert, the tall dry grass, and the faraway hills kept her company. Her shoes were worn, and the soles felt thin. She kept walking because she had nowhere else to go. Her old truck had finally given up 2 days earlier, its engine coughing a shaky goodbye before going completely silent. She had tried to fix it herself. She had opened the hood, checked the wires, looked at the parts she knew. But nothing she tried made the engine start again. Walking away from the truck was one of the hardest choices she had made in a long time. It had been her home, her shelter, and her way of moving forward. But staying beside a dead truck on an empty back road was not safe, and she knew she needed water, shade, and help. So she packed the few things she owned into her backpack: some clothes, a folded blanket, and a small pouch with 3 crumpled dollars inside, and started walking. The $3 were all she had. She had counted them again and again, almost hoping another bill might magically appear, but the number stayed the same. $3. Not enough for a room, not enough for a meal, not enough for much of anything, but it was still something. And she held on to that small comfort. The wind picked up and pushed her long braids over her shoulder. Her hair, usually neat and smooth, was dusty from the days on the road. She brushed it back with her hand and kept moving. Her legs ached, but she didn't stop. The sun was beginning to lower toward the horizon. She needed to find water before night came. As she walked, she thought about her family back home. She had not spoken to them in months, not because she didn't love them, but because she didn't want to worry them. She had left home hoping to find seasonal ranch work, the kind that paid cash and let her stay under the open sky. But things had not gone as planned. Jobs were harder to find than she expected. The town she passed through last had closed most places for the season. With each setback, she had told herself to stay strong, to keep moving, to trust that the road would eventually lead her somewhere better. Still, even the strongest spirit could feel tired sometimes. And right now, walking in the heat with a dry throat and an empty stomach, Maria felt very tired. Up ahead, she noticed something different on the landscape. The dirt road curved slightly, and beyond that curve, she saw a fence. A real fence. That meant someone lived nearby. Her heart lifted a little. She adjusted her backpack and walked faster. As she came around the bend, she saw the outline of a ranch. A windmill stood tall, turning slowly in the light breeze. A long stretch of wooden fencing ran around the property. A few horses grazed lazily near the far edge, and sitting near the front, shaded partly by an old tree, was a modest ranch house. It wasn't big, but it looked solid, lived in, cared for. Maria stopped at the fence, resting her hand on the rough wood. She felt a mixture of relief and fear. Relief because she had finally reached a place where a person might help her. Fear because she never knew how strangers would react to someone like her, a tired traveler. A woman alone, dusty from the road, carrying nothing but a backpack and hope. She took a long breath, steadying her heart. She did not want to look desperate, though she felt it. She did not want to seem weak, though her legs trembled. She wanted to be respectful, polite, and calm. A movement caught her eye. A tall man stepped out of the barn, wiping his hands on a cloth. He wore a simple shirt, old jeans, and boots covered with dry dirt. A cowboy hat shaded his face, but she could see enough to know he had kind eyes and a steady, thoughtful expression. He walked with a slow, even pace, as if nothing ever hurried him. Maria cleared her throat gently, trying to make her voice steady. "Sir?" She called out softly, hoping he would hear her. The man looked up almost immediately. He seemed surprised to see someone at his fence, but not alarmed. He walked toward her with an easy stride, stopping a few steps away so she wouldn't feel cornered. "Afternoon," he said. His voice was calm, deep, and friendly. "You all right?" Maria nodded, though she knew she didn't look all right. Dust clung to her clothes. Her face carried the dull ache of exhaustion. Her hands trembled from hunger. I'm sorry to bother you, she began, her voice quiet but steady. I've been walking a long way. My truck broke down. I only have $3 left, but she swallowed and paused. Can I wash up at your outdoor tap? I can pay you the $3 for the water. I just need to clean up and cool down. That's all. Saying the words made her cheeks warm with embarrassment. She wished she had more to offer, wished she didn't have to ask a stranger for something so basic. But she lifted her chin slightly, showing all the dignity she had left. She would pay with what she had, even if it was very little. The cowboy looked at her in silence for a few seconds, studying her face. Not judging, simply understanding. Her tired shoulders, her dry lips, her dusty braids, her simple request. He slowly shook his head. Ma'am, he said gently, you don't need to pay me for water. Maria blinked. She had expected him to say no. She had expected suspicion or annoyance. She had prepared herself for rejection. Instead, she got kindness. I don't want something for nothing, she said quietly. Water is important. It is, he agreed. But it's also something I have plenty of. And you look like you've had a long, hard road. He pointed toward a small outdoor sink beside the barn. Go ahead. There's soap and a clean towel hanging there. Take your time. Maria's throat tightened with emotion she didn't want to show. She nodded quickly, unable to trust her voice. Thank you, she whispered. She walked toward the tap slowly, almost afraid the offer would vanish if she moved too quickly. When she reached the sink, she set down her backpack and turned on the water. The cool stream touched her hands, and she closed her eyes for a moment, letting the simple comfort wash over her as she rinsed the dust from her skin. She felt a small but important shift inside her. She wasn't safe yet, and she didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But this small moment, this act of kindness from a stranger, felt like the first peaceful thing she'd encountered in weeks. She washed her face, her arms and her neck, watching the dirt swirl away into the ground. She braided her hair again, tighter this time, feeling more like herself. The towel smelled clean, like sun and wind. While she cleaned up, she saw the cowboy working nearby, tending to his chores, but keeping a respectful distance. He didn't ask questions. He didn't stare. He simply let her be. For the first time in days, Maria felt a tiny spark of comfort. A spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this ranch hand, this quiet cowboy, were exactly what she needed on this long, uncertain road. Caleb Ruiz watched the woman at the outdoor tap from a comfortable distance. He didn't want her to feel watched or uncomfortable, but he wanted to be sure she was okay. Something about her tired posture and quiet voice had touched him more deeply than he expected. He had seen travelers before, not many who carried themselves with such quiet strength despite being exhausted. She washed her face slowly, letting the cool water soothe her skin. The dust from the road fell away, revealing soft features that had been hidden beneath layers of dry desert wind. Her braids, still tangled, were pulled back neatly again as she finished. When she lifted her head, she seemed a little lighter, as if a small weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Caleb had already returned to his chores. Moving calmly around the ranch, he fed the chickens first, scattering grain with careful motions. Then he walked to the barn and checked the horses. They nickered softly at him, and he gave them a reassuring pat on the neck. These tasks were part of his everyday life. But today they felt different, because he sensed the presence of a stranger, someone in need on his land. He wasn't worried. There was something gentle and respectful in the way the woman spoke. She had asked quietly, offered payment she clearly couldn't spare, and didn't push herself forward. He could tell she didn't want to trouble anyone. That alone made him want to help her more. After a few minutes, Maria walked back slowly with the towel folded neatly in her hands. She stood near the fence again, unsure of whether she should approach him or simply say goodbye. Caleb noticed her hesitation and walked toward her with calm, steady steps. Feel a bit better? He asked kindly. She nodded. Yes, thank you. Really. That helped more than you know. He noticed her voice was a little clearer now, less weighed down by exhaustion. "No need to thank me," he replied. "Anyone walking that long in this heat would need water." Maria hesitated again. She looked at her backpack, then at him. "Do you know where the nearest town is?" She asked quietly. "I think I need work. Or maybe a place where I can call someone." Caleb rubbed the back of his neck thoughtfully. "Town's still a long walk from here. Hours at least. And the road gets narrow before it meets the highway." Maria's shoulders dropped slightly. Not in disappointment, more in acceptance. She was used to long roads, long waits, and long stretches of uncertainty. He studied her for another moment. She was tired, but not helpless. Nervous, but not afraid. Independent, but carrying more burdens than she should. "Have you eaten anything today?" he finally asked. She blinked in surprise. No," she admitted. "Not today? Yesterday?" She gave a small nod, but didn't explain further. She didn't need to. He already understood. "Well," he said slowly, "I was just about to heat something up for lunch. It's simple, but it's enough. You're welcome to join me if you'd like." Maria opened her mouth to refuse. She didn't want to seem like she was taking advantage of his kindness. But the truth was, she was hungry enough that her stomach felt hollow. "I don't want to trouble you," she said softly. "It's no trouble," Caleb replied. "Food tastes better when there's someone to share it with." She looked at him, searching his face for any sign of discomfort or impatience. She found none, only steady kindness. "All right," she said at last. "Thank you." They walked toward the small porch of the ranch house. It was a simple place with a wooden bench, a couple of flower pots, and a screen door that creaked as Caleb opened it. Inside, the house was cozy and well kept. The kitchen was small but clean, with sunlight pouring in from a window above the sink. The smell of coffee lingered faintly in the air. Caleb motioned toward the table. "You can sit wherever you like." Maria set her backpack down carefully and took a seat, folding her hands in her lap. She felt awkward, like she didn't quite belong there, but she also felt something else: comfort. And she hadn't felt that in a long time. Caleb moved around the kitchen with practiced ease. He warmed a pot of beans, sliced fresh tomatoes, and placed warm tortillas onto a plate. It wasn't fancy food, but it smelled good, better than anything she had eaten in weeks. As he set the food on the table, he spoke gently. "Eat as much as you want." Maria nodded gratefully and took a small bite at first, testing, then another. Before long, she ate more confidently, though still politely. Caleb took slow bites himself, not wanting her to feel rushed or watched. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The quiet was peaceful. Finally, Caleb cleared his throat lightly. "What's your name?" "Maria," she answered, wiping her hands gently on her napkin. "Maria Nez." "It's nice to meet you, Maria," he said with a warm nod. "I'm Caleb. This is my family's ranch." "Been here all my life." She smiled a tiny bit. "It's a peaceful place." He glanced out the window at the open fields stretching far into the horizon. "It is. Gets lonely sometimes, but peaceful is a good word for it." The quiet returned, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like the kind of silence people share when they're still learning how to speak to each other. After a few minutes, Caleb asked gently, "Were you traveling to find work?" Maria hesitated. She didn't want to share too much, not because she didn't trust him, because she didn't want to sound like she was asking for anything. "Yes," she said finally. "I pick up seasonal jobs wherever I can. I was hoping to find something in the last town I passed, but most places were closed." Caleb nodded thoughtfully. He could imagine how hard that must have been. The off-season always left many people searching. "In your truck?" he asked. "It broke down on the back road 2 days ago," she said. "I tried to fix it, but I don't know much about engines." She gave a small, nervous laugh. "I walked away because I didn't want to waste the daylight." Caleb admired her courage. Many people would have panicked or given up, but she had kept walking, carrying only $3 and hope. "I see," he murmured. Maria looked down at her hands. "I don't expect you to help with all that. I just needed water, and I'm grateful you gave it to me." Caleb leaned back in his chair, studying her with honest, gentle eyes. "Well," he began slowly, I can't fix your truck from here, but I can drive out there later and take a look. Maybe it just needs a few adjustments." Her eyes widened in genuine surprise. You would do that? If it's fixable, I'll tell you. And if not, we'll figure out another plan. Maria's breath caught slightly. She wasn't used to strangers offering help so easily. It made her feel warm and uneasy at the same time. Unsure of how to repay such kindness. "You don't have to," she said softly. "I know," he replied with a small smile. "Sometimes folks just help each other because it's the right thing to do." She looked away for a moment, blinking back the emotion building in her eyes. She didn't want to cry not after finally feeling a bit stronger. She took a slow breath and steadied herself. After they finished eating, she helped clear the table. She insisted, even when Caleb told her she didn't need to. Washing dishes felt grounding to her, something normal after days of uncertainty. As she dried the last plate, she glanced outside. The sun was lower now, painting the ranch in shades of warm gold. It felt like one of those quiet evenings she remembered from years ago, safe evenings, A.com evenings. Caleb stood near the doorway, watching the sky. "You're welcome to rest here a while," he said. "The porch gets nice shade in the evening." Maria didn't know what to say. She felt grateful, but also unsure of her place here. Still, she stepped outside and sat on the porch bench. The breeze brushed against her skin, carrying the scent of hay and warm earth. Caleb joined her a moment later. Leaning against the porch railing, they didn't talk much. They didn't need to. Maria took in the peaceful view, feeling the quiet settle inside her. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know if her truck would ever work again. She didn't know where her next job would be. But for the first time in a long while, she felt safe. She felt seen. She felt human again. And all because one cowboy chose kindness instead of turning away. The next morning came softly, with a pink glow spreading across the land, before the sun fully rose. Maria woke on the porch bench where she had rested the night before. She had slept lightly, wrapped in her blanket, but even a few hours of peaceful rest felt like a blessing. She stretched slowly, feeling both stiff and grateful. Inside the house, she heard quiet movement. Caleb was already awake, just as she expected. People who worked the land woke early. The animals depended on them. She stood, brushed off her blanket, and walked toward the porch steps. Before she could reach the door, Caleb pushed it open with his shoulder, balancing a mug of warm tea in each hand. "Oh," he said with a surprised smile. "You're up." Maria nodded politely. "Good morning." He handed her one of the mugs. "I made some tea. It's not fancy, but it'll warm you up." Maria accepted it carefully, wrapping both hands around it. The mug felt good, warm, and steady. She lifted it to her lips and took a slow sip. It tasted simple, with a soft hint of herbs. "Thank you," she said. "This is nice." They stood for a moment on the porch, drinking quietly as the sky brightened. The ranch was waking up to the chickens rustled in their coop. A soft whinny came from the barn. "So," Caleb said after a few minutes, "I was thinking, if you'd like, you can stay around the ranch today. I could use an extra pair of hands with some small chores." Maria looked up with a little surprise. "You want me to help?" "If you're willing," he said with an easy shrug. "I don't expect anything, but there's always work that needs doing. And I know you mentioned wanting to earn some money for the road." Her heart warmed at the offer. She didn't want charity. She wanted to work, to regain her sense of direction. Helping on the ranch felt honest, like a fair trade. "I'd like that," she said. "If I can help, I will." Caleb smiled a little, the kind of smile that held both trust and appreciation. "Good," he said. "Let's start after breakfast." They ate simple oatmeal with fruit, and then Caleb showed her around the ranch. He explained things slowly, without hurrying her, and made sure she understood each task before moving on. Maria listened carefully, grateful for his patience. Their first job was mending part of the fence that bordered the corral. A section of wood had started to loosen from the wind and needed to be tightened. Maria held the boards steady while Caleb hammered nails in place. She was strong, steadying the wood with firm hands. Caleb glanced at her a few times, impressed, She didn't complain, didn't hesitate, and didn't seem afraid of hard work. "You've done this before?" he asked lightly. "Not exactly," she said, adjusting her grip. "But I've fixed things close to it. Work like this doesn't scare me," he nodded. "It shows." When the fence was finished, they moved to feeding the animals. Caleb handed her a small bucket of grain. "The horses like to crowd a little," he warned. "But they mean well," Maria laughed softly. "I'm okay with animals. They're honest." He liked the way she said that. As she fed the horses, the animals approached her with gentle interest. She placed grain into their trough, patting their necks as they ate. Her touch was calm and respectful, and even the more skittish horse relaxed near her. "You're good with them," Caleb said. Maria looked up from smoothing a horse's mane. "They're good with me," she replied simply. They worked through the morning with easy teamwork. Maria gathered eggs from the coop, carefully placing them into a basket. She swept the barn walkway clean. She carried buckets of water with steady steps, even though they were heavy. Every task she did with full effort. Caleb watched her a few times when she wasn't looking. Something about her focus, her quiet determination moved him. She was tired, yes, but she didn't let tiredness slow her down. She carried herself with a calm strength that didn't need to be loud to be seen. Around midday, they took a short break under the shade of a tall cottonwood tree. Caleb passed her a bottle of cool water, and Maria drank gratefully. "You don't rest much," he remarked kindly. She shrugged a little. "Rest feels easier when you know you earned it." Caleb smiled. "That's a good way to see it." They sat quietly for a bit, listening to the soft rustling of leaves. For the first time in a long while, Maria felt the heaviness in her mind lifting. The ranch wasn't noisy. It wasn't stressful. It was peaceful in a way she had almost forgotten could exist. After their break, Caleb finally brought up the subject she had been quietly worrying about. "I was thinking about your truck," he said. "If you want, I can check on it later this afternoon. Maybe we can find out what went wrong." Maria exhaled softly. "I'd appreciate that." "I didn't want to ask again." "You didn't need to," Caleb replied gently. "You're helping me here. It's only fair I help you too." It wasn't just fairness. He truly wanted to help her. Later in the afternoon, while the sun was still high but less harsh, Caleb loaded some tools into his truck. Maria climbed into the passenger seat, holding her backpack close. She felt a little nervous she hadn't visited her broken truck since leaving it behind days ago. The drive was quiet but comfortable. Dust lifted behind the tires as they moved along the winding road. When they finally reached the spot where Maria had left her truck, she felt her chest tighten slightly at the sight of it sitting alone. "There it is," she murmured. Caleb parked nearby and stepped out to inspect it. He opened the hood, checked the battery, and examined the belts and wires. Maria stayed beside him, watching carefully, offering to hand him tools when he needed them. He worked with the calm patience of someone who had fixed many things before. But after a while, he sighed softly and wiped his forehead. "It's not a simple fix," he told her. "It may need parts that I don't have here, possibly even a new engine belt." Maria looked down at her hands. She had hoped, but she had also prepared herself for bad news. "It's all right," she said quietly. "I guessed it might be too far gone." Caleb closed the hood gently. "I'm sorry, Maria." She shook her head. "You tried? That means something to me." He admired the way she accepted things with grace instead of frustration. But he couldn't help feeling determined to make sure she wasn't stranded. "We can get it towed at some point," he said. "But there's no rush today. For now, let's head back." Maria nodded, giving her truck one last look. It had carried her through many places, many miles. Letting go of it felt like letting go of a chapter in her life. But maybe she needed to. As they drove back, Caleb wanted to lift her spirits, so he said gently, "Your work today helped me a lot. You're welcome to stay on the ranch for a while if you'd like." Maria turned to him with a surprised expression. "You mean stay and work?" "Yes," he said simply. "If that's something you want, I can pay you a fair amount. It won't be a fortune, but it'll be enough for food, repairs, or saving for whatever comes next." She stared out the window thoughtfully. "I don't know how long I'd stay," she said gently. "But I think I'd like that. For now. For now is enough, he replied. Days turned into a soft, steady pattern. Maria helped repair fences, fed animals, swept barns, washed tools, and did whatever needed doing. She worked hard, and Caleb appreciated every bit of it. He paid her fairly each week, placing the money in an envelope she could tuck safely in her backpack. They shared meals quietly, not needing many words. She learned the rhythm of the ranch, the morning sounds, the afternoon breeze, the peaceful sunsets. And Caleb learned bits and pieces about Maria. Through the way she moved and the rare stories she chose to share, she never spoke about her past in detail. He never pushed. All he needed to know was that she was here now, safe, resting, and slowly finding her strength again. And all she needed to know is that this was a place where kindness didn't come with a price. For the first time in a long time, Maria began to feel something she almost didn't recognize. Hope. Soft, gentle, steady hope. The kind that grows quietly, like a seed beginning to sprout. The days on the ranch passed in a calm, steady rhythm. For the first time in many months, Maria felt her heart settling instead of running. She woke every morning to the sound of birds and the soft rustling of the wind across the fields. She helped with the chores, walked among the horses, and breathed in the quiet comfort of the land. The ranch became more than a place to work. It became a place where she felt safe, a place where her thoughts were no longer heavy, her steps no longer felt lost. Each evening, she and Caleb shared a simple meal at the wooden kitchen table. They didn't talk endlessly, but the conversations they did have were honest. Sometimes they spoke about the weather, the animals, or the small events of the day. Other times, they sat quietly, enjoying the calm around them. It was during these quiet days that Maria slowly started to feel her spirit rise again. She didn't feel rushed. She didn't feel judged. She simply felt welcomed still. She knew she couldn't stay forever. As peaceful as the ranch was, her journey hadn't ended. She had dreams to follow, places to go, and a life she wanted to rebuild. The ranch was a gentle pause, a place where she found herself again, but it wasn't her. Final destination, one cool morning. After several weeks had passed, Maria stepped outside and felt the crisp freshness of dawn. The sky was still painted with soft colors, and dew glistened on the grass. She took a deep breath and made up her mind. Today, she would tell Caleb she was ready to move on, not because she wanted to leave, but because she finally felt strong enough to when she entered the barn. She found him checking the horses, gently brushing one of them. He glanced up at her with a warm smile. "Morning, Maria." "Morning," she replied, returning the smile. They worked side by side for a while, feeding the animals and cleaning their stalls. The peaceful silence around them felt familiar and comfortable. After a few minutes, Maria stopped, holding the handle of a broom lightly in her hands. "Caleb," she began softly, "there's something I need to talk to you about." He set down the brush and turned to face her fully. "All right. What's on your mind?" She took a slow breath. "I think it's time for me to move on. Not today, but soon. I've saved some money now. Enough to repair my truck, enough to start again." Caleb nodded slowly. His expression was calm, but she saw the softness in his eyes. "I figured the day would come," he said gently. "You've been working hard. You deserve a fresh start." Maria looked down for a moment. "I didn't want you to think I was leaving without thanking you. You helped me more than you know." "I don't need thanks," he replied softly. "I just wanted you to feel safe." "I did," she said. "You gave me space to rest, to breathe, to remember who I am." Caleb smiled, a steady, quiet smile. "I'm glad." Later that afternoon, they drove into town together to arrange the towing and repair of Maria's truck. The mechanic examined it carefully and told her it would take a few days to fix, but it was possible. Maria felt relief wash through her. For the first time in weeks, she could imagine the wheels turning again beneath her, carrying her toward her next step in life. Back at the ranch, she continued working while waiting for the truck to be repaired. But things felt different now, gentler somehow. She moved through her days with calm confidence, knowing she had direction again. One evening, just a few days before the truck would be ready, Maria sat on the porch watching the orange glow of sunset. Caleb stepped outside and sat beside her. He kept a comfortable distance, never wanting to crowd her. "It's going to be strange not seeing you around the ranch," he said quietly. Maria looked at him with a small smile. "It'll be strange for me too. This place. It helped me in ways I didn't expect." He rested his hands on his knees. "You helped this place too. You brought life to it. It's been quieter since my parents passed, and I've been running it alone. Having you here reminded me what good company feels like." Maria felt warmth in her chest. She hadn't expected to become part of the ranch's rhythm the way she had. She had simply needed a place to rest. But she had ended up forming a connection deeper than she imagined. After a long moment, she said softly, "I'll come back someday." His eyes softened. "I'd like that." The morning her truck was brought back to the ranch felt both exciting and bittersweet. The mechanic drove it in, now running smoothly again. Maria walked around it slowly, touching the repaired hood with gentle gratitude. "It's good to see it alive again," she said. Caleb chuckled softly. "It looks ready for the road." They stood there together, the open field stretching around them and the wide sky above. Maria reached into her backpack and pulled out the envelope of money she had earned from working on the ranch. "This is yours," she said, handing it to him. "I worked for you. You paid me honestly. Now I want to give something back. You helped me when I had nothing but $3. Caleb shook his head, gently pushing her hand back. "Maria, you earned every dollar. I don't want it back. But I feel like I should repay you," she said quietly. "Even a little." He paused, thinking. Then he reached out and took only the original $3 she had offered him the day she first arrived. "These," he said, pressing the folded bills into her palm, "are yours. Don't forget where you came from, or how hard you worked to get where you're going." Maria looked at the bills in her hand, her eyes watering gently. She nodded without speaking. She placed her backpack in the passenger seat, turned to face him. "I don't know where the road will take me," she said, "but I won't forget this place. Or you." Caleb's smile was warm, but a little sad. "You'll do well wherever you go," he told her, "and the ranch will be here if you ever want to come back. Even just to visit." Maria stepped closer and held out her hand. Caleb took it gently. Their handshake was warm, firm, and full of quiet meaning. "Thank you for everything," she said softly. "Safe travels, Maria," he replied. "You deserve every good thing waiting for you."
Ow.
She climbed into her truck, started the engine, and took one last look at the ranch, the porch, the fields, the barn, the man who had shown her unexpected kindness. With a deep breath, she shifted into gear as she drove down the dirt road. The dust rose behind her, just like it had on the day she arrived. But this time, she wasn't running. She wasn't lost. She wasn't tired in her heart. She was moving forward, toward a new beginning, toward possibilities she hadn't dared to imagine weeks ago, toward a future she was ready to build. With her own two hands, and though she left the ranch behind, a gentle part of it stayed with her, the quiet kindness, the calm strength of the land, and the memory of a cowboy who had given her a chance when she needed it most. She touched the $3 in her pocket and smiled softly, a reminder of where her journey had begun, a symbol of how far she had come. The road stretched out before her, open wide and full of promise, and with hope steady in her heart, Maria drove toward whatever came next.